This is the latest film from Simon Stone, whose previous work I'm not familiar with. But I am familiar with Carey Mulligan, and she's done a fair amount of good work over the last decade. And she's pretty much the reason I even sat down to watch this, because, well, on the surface, pun intended, it honestly didn't look like anything particularly interesting. And I expected nothing from this, but boy was I in for a pleasant surprise. Because I almost immediately liked it. It didn't have to do much at all to pull me in. Basically from the first few minutes I was already fully on board and wanted to see more. And not gonna lie, a lot of that had to do with Ralph Fiennes, because I loved him in this. He's just a phenomenal actor, and this might be one of my favorite roles I've seen him in. Which is really interesting because it's a rather understated role too. But the basic idea here is that he plays an excavator in 1939 in Suffolk, England. And Carey Mulligan's character has tasked him with excavating this ancient mound on her property. Basically a huge pile of dirt that's suspected to be of some historical significance. And this excavation, or dig if you will, is basically what the whole movie revolves around. And while the dig is important, the actual story is of course about the characters involved. And to my surprise, there are quite a lot of characters involved in this. It starts off very quaint, and I thought it was all gonna be about, well, more or less the two main characters I mentioned. But that's not really the case. There's probably close to 10 characters that actually matter here, and all of them get their own little smaller stories and their own little arcs too. Which really helped keep things interesting, and it did a good job too, because I never felt even remotely bored by it. Because not only is the writing very good, all the performances are more or less excellent. And the cast here is nothing short of stellar. Even the smaller roles are played by heavy hitters, who have all previously already proved themselves to have some serious acting chops. And that, I guess, brings us to the pacing, which sometimes could feel almost too quick. But for the most part it just felt really great, because this thing moves and doesn't let up. And a lot of that has to do with the editing, but I feel like the score contributed even more. Because what we have here is an absolutely beautiful piano-driven score. And it pretty much goes non-stop. There are actually very few moments where it's not present. And it really helps the movie move along and makes it feel like there's always a sense of urgency to the story. So the score here gets nothing but praise from me. I thought it was excellent. I was also a fan of the way the movie was shot, because I would very much call it Malick-esque, with mostly natural lighting and a lot of floaty handheld camera work. And that, combined with the score, really made almost every moment of the movie feel full of life. Thankfully though, as I mentioned, this one had a lot better writing than Malick's recent work. And not only was the story very good, but the character writing and the dialogue was very, very good as well. And this might seem like a lot of praise, but I 100% feel like it deserves every bit of it. Because I loved this movie. I thought it was a rather impressive feat of filmmaking. One that rarely stumbled, and when it did, it wasn't enough to have much of a negative impact. All the small issues were very much overshadowed by how well everything else worked. Now with that being said, I don't think it's necessarily a masterpiece, but it is very good all around and probably the biggest surprise of the year so far. I do have one piece of critique though that doesn't really have anything to do with the movie itself, and that's the title, because I don't think this title will draw in the crowd it wants or deserves. And that is truly unfortunate. However, I might be wrong, and I really hope I am, because this one deserves way more attention than it's currently getting. And I for one would be surprised if it doesn't make it onto my year-end list 10 months from now. Because I really have no choice but to give this one a low 9. Boop. However, does that mean I would recommend it? Absolutely. If you're into period dramas, this one's more or less a must-see. So definitely give this one a shot, or, you know, maybe don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic.